What am I doing, Zachary?
You're building a rocket.
Okay, thank you. So Kathy, you just asked about the design process of these rockets, and so I wanted to show you the rocket we talked about that I'm putting together. This is called the Bluebird of Happiness, and currently most of it is unfinished. What you see here is the decal that I'm going to apply to the rest of the airframe. Last night I did the nose cone, which has this metal tip here to take the worst of the heat of flight. But then the Bluebird is here, and that's what Sean drew. But basically the airframe is fiberglass. It bolts together in its segments with these little metal bolts. You have a couple holes elsewhere in the airframe where you reach through, and like right there you can see the little white button that is the switch that turns on the camera. Well, the camera is sitting over here right now. It's disconnected, and this is the shield. This is the faceplate that will fit over the camera once it's in this port. And I have additional room in the payload bay here that I can add additional payload gear if I want to. But then when this is in flight, I'll have the payload bay latched down, more or less like that, except better. And that screws in too. So basically there's multiple sections of the rocket. This up to here is the payload bay, currently carrying a camera, but it could carry some other experiments as well. Inside the nose cone, actually, there's also room for gear, and the gear I'll have in there is this GPS and radio altimeter. So it broadcasts real-time telemetry on the rocket. Speed, altitude, location is probably the most important part. And so that hides out here in the nose cone and transmits back down to ground. And then we talked about the camera. In this section, I have an altimeter here that it's a barometric altimeter, so it monitors air pressure, which it samples through these little holes here. This is a screw hole that will hold this together, and then this is one of the just ports that allows air in, so that the barometric altimeter can sense the atmospheric pressure and measure altitude. And when it stops climbing, actually this one is for firing the main. When it returns from apogee down to about, in this case, 800 feet, it will fire a gunpowder charge that will be held in this little bulk plate that fits on the back of this. There's a little coupler inside here, inside the payload tube, inside the body tube, that the altimeter sits inside. It will connect here to this little coupler, which connects here to a little connector, which will put an igniter into this little bucket that will have black powder in it. So when it comes back down from apogee past 800 feet, it will fire this charge, which will break the little nylon pins that hold this hole in place, and it will deploy the parachute. In this case, the main parachute, which is, and this is how big is this chute? I think this is a 48-inch parachute, and then this is the shock cord that holds the whole thing together. It's made of Kevlar. And this is a piece of Tomach, which is a fire-resistant cloth that protects the parachute from that ejection charge. This is actually, so this is the parachute section, the main section. There's another altimeter just down here, which also fires a charge to deploy the main. I've got two independent altimeters so that they're redundant. If one doesn't fire, the other will. This altimeter also fires the apogee drogue parachute. So when the rocket stops climbing, this altimeter will detect that and fire the charge to, again, break the shear pins here. They're thin little nylon pins that just break off, and you remove them after flight. It'll break them, and the whole thing will come apart. You see the shock cord is inside here, but the drogue chute, it's a tiny little 18-inch parachute. Does just enough to slow it when it's descending, so that it doesn't drift very far, but it is slowed down so that it's not going super fast. And again, there's a protecting cloth for the drogue chute. And then everything from this point on down is room for the motors. The motor I'll be flying it on first will only come up to about here, and that will fly to about 3,000 feet. Subsequent flights, though, with motors that extend up to here, would be capable of flying up to about 16,000 feet. So that's kind of that. give you a size of the diameter of the motor. It's a 54 millimeter motor mount. Fits almost, but not quite exactly flush with the airframe tube. And again, all this is fiberglass with epoxy glue on it to hold things together. And like we talked about, the next thing I'm doing here is applying this decal that Sean drew and my friend in Utah printed out for me. So he's got it down to figure out how to put art onto something that will fit onto the body tube. And last night I did the nose cone. It was my first time working with this much. I've done decals with this before, but I haven't done a full wrap like this. So I did get some wrinkles here, just below the eyes, because I had to do all this top head part in one piece. And then the underbelly is a couple different pieces. But you see some seams there, and that's kind of inevitable. I guess I learned some about the art I used here. I'd use it so that there's more vague patterns here, so that you can more easily match it without showing the seams. So that's kind of where we are, and the next step is to get 2 lengths of this decal in place so that this fiberglass is all covered. Alright, I hope you enjoy it, and I'll show you more when we're done.